Welcome to another UCL Fantasy video. What I'm going to be doing here today is splitting this into two parts. The first half of this video, I'm going to be talking about the best chip strategy you can go for and explaining the Limitless chip and the wildcard. What are the best possible strategies regarding those two chips and when to use them. I'm not going to be giving you so many different methods so that you're overwhelmed. I'm going to be highlighting two of the best ways you can do it. One which is very traditional and which a lot of managers go for, and another which might differentiate you from the rest of the pack. And then in the second half of this video, I'm going to be talking about the best Limitless team for Matchday 2. So without further ado, let's head straight into the video. One of the key things to highlight is the fixtures and how they work in the Champions League group stages. So every year, Matchday 1 is going to have the same fixtures as Matchday 6, just reversed. And then the same goes for Matchday 2. It's pretty much the same as Matchday 5, once again, just reversed. And in Matchdays 3 and 4, we have the same fixture consecutively. And all of this, I think, is very important when it comes to the chip strategy. In my opinion, obviously, the kind of most popular strategy is to wildcard in Matchday 3 and use the Limitless, perhaps in Matchdays 2 and 5. And I think that's a viable way to go. And for those of you who are new to the game, I think this would obviously be quite informative for you. Now, just to kind of break it down, in my opinion, Matchday 1, I mean, you can't use the chips anyway, and you wouldn't want to even if you could. When you look at Matchday 6, the reason why I wouldn't consider using any of the chips really, especially the Limitless, is because we have a lot of rotation in Matchday 6, with a lot of groups kind of already being settled or close to being settled, and also there are other competitions around that time in December which also really come into play. It could be other cups, it could be the leagues themselves, which are very, very crucial. So Matchday 6 I try to avoid for the Limitless chip. You could use it in the knockout stages, but because you have an increase in your transfer budget from 100 million to 105, I would just rather use it in the group stages, in my opinion. And also the key reason why the Limitless, in my opinion, should be used in the group stages is because of the level of opposition, and you have all of these kind of weaker teams which you can target for the captaincy, and you can just get multiple big premium assets who could really do well in fixtures, for example Matchday 2 and 5, which are really good. And a popular strategy amongst a lot of UCL fantasy managers would be to wildcard in Matchday 3 and then use the Limitless in, let's say, Matchdays 2 and 5. The reason why they do this is because if you wildcard in Matchday 3, you're going to have the exact same fixtures for these players in Matchday 4, as I discussed earlier. And I think that's obviously a very smart play. And you also have the majority of the group stages to have or benefit from this wildcard team. And then remember, heading into the knockout stages, Matchday 7, you are able to have unlimited transfers without using a wildcard there. And that's why a lot of people tend to use the wildcard earlier. And if you do that, I would then recommend using the Limitless chip in either Matchday 2 or 5. Remember, it's the exact same kind of fixture, so it doesn't really matter when you do it. What I would say is that in Matchday 5, you'd have more information, you'd have a better understanding of the best assets and the best teams so far this season in the Champions League. So it might be more beneficial to use the Limitless chip in Matchday 5, but that's not to say that using it in Matchday 2 can't work out for you as well. I believe 2 seasons ago I used it in Matchday 2 and I got an incredible score of around 95 points or 100 points. So I was very happy with that, and it can work out for you. But in my opinion, if you decide to use the wildcard chip in Matchday 3, I would then use the Limitless in either Matchday 2 or 5, not Matchday 6 because of rotation, and because of the knockout stages, the games are going to be harder. There's going to just be pretty much good teams left. I would just prefer using the Limitless in the group stages, and if you do decide to use the wildcard in the group stages too, Matchday 3 is definitely the best time to use it. Now, if you want to maybe be a bit cautious and you want to hold the wildcard for the knockout stages, now that's where things can change, and this opens it up. This is pretty much the main part of the video in my opinion in terms of the chip strategy. If you want to differentiate yourself, I think what you could do is then Limitless in Matchday 3 or 4 as well. You have that option too. A lot of people will be going for it in Matchday 2 and 5, but Matchday 3 also has some very good fixtures, and it could actually be a very good opportunity for you. And another thing I actually like about this is that there aren't really too many big clashes, you could say, between two big teams. There is Atletico against Liverpool, arguably PSG against Leipzig, maybe not two big teams, but two tough opponents. Other than that though, I'd say quite a lot of clear winners, at least on paper. Porto Milan's also a pretty difficult one to call, but on the whole, I'd say a lot of the teams, the big teams, have fixtures where you'd expect them to win. So if you decide to use the wildcard in the knockout stages, I would actually be tempted to potentially Limitless in matchday 3 or 4. That could actually be a really beneficial strategy. Now, when would you use the wildcard if you were to use it in the knockout stages? In my opinion, there's no point using it for the final, because remember, you want to maximize your bench too, especially with your wildcard. And in the final, you can only field 11 players. And also, once again with a wildcard, I think it's best used when you also have future game weeks and match days to look forward to, rather than just relying on one match day for your chip to pay off. That's the way I see it. And then you look at the semi-finals, you could use it for the first leg of the semi-finals, and then you potentially have 3 match days left to use it. So the first leg, second leg, and then the final itself. I wouldn't be using the wildcard in the second leg of the semi-finals, but anytime pretty much in the quarterfinals, whether it's the first leg or second leg, or the first leg of the semi-finals, that's when I would be using the wild card if you decide to use it in the knockout stages. Now, this would be very beneficial when, for example, there's quite a few upsets. A lot of the teams you invested heavily in, especially with maybe 2, 3, 4 players from a certain team, they get eliminated and you're in a bit of a predicament. That would be a great time to use the wild cards. Other people who might be in a similar situation to you, they may have to take a lot of hits whilst you just have a wild card in your back pocket, and that will give you an advantage over them. So that's one way of looking at it. In my opinion, if you decide to hold the wild card up until the knockout stages, use it in the quarterfinals or the first leg of the semi-finals, and then you could potentially Limitless in matchday 3 or 4, which is also very promising. And if not, there's also matchday 2 and 5. I'd forget about matchday 6. And then if you decide to use the Limitless and the wild card both in the group stages, in my opinion, it's best to use the Limitless in matchday 2 or 5, and as for the wildcard, definitely in matchday 3. So hopefully that clears everything up. If you have any further questions, let me know down in the comment section below, and I'll be answering them. And this kind of part of the video, I'd say, is kind of relevant even in future match days as well. You know, this can still apply. If you decide to save your wildcard and then you listen in on this, I think this could give you a very good insight into something that could potentially gain you a lot of rank. So hopefully this has been helpful. And now let's move on to the best Limitless team you can make for matchday 2. I'll be honest, I am tempted to actually Limitless in matchday 2, and it's something that I may do in the coming days, of course, and I'm going to be thinking about it. And this team would be very similar to the best Limitless team, for example, in matchday 5, because it's the corresponding fixture just the other way around. So it's something that I would consider if, let's say, for example, I don't Limitless in matchday 2, I might actually use a similar team heading into matchday 5. And I'll just be discussing some of these picks. Remember, there are different ways you can go about it, and you don't just have to go for everyone you see on screen. It's not the be-all and end-all. There are different options and some differentials, maybe some kind of lower priced players who could really do the job for you. And I'll be explaining a few alternatives as we go along. But in terms of the goalkeepers, I think we have clear winners here. Manuel Neuer and Courtois. Courtois faces Sheriff, and then you have Neuer who plays Dynamo Kiev, both at home, and both defenses you'd say are reasonably good, especially Real Madrid this season. So honestly, on a Limitless, I think they're the 2 best goalkeepers you can go for. Of course, remember, the Limitless chip, it is literally unlimited transfers for 1 game week only. It's like a free hit, and you have unlimited budget restrictions. Well, pretty much you don't have a budget restriction anyway, so you can get anyone you want so long as you have a valid formation and get 2 goalkeepers, 5 defenders, 5 midfielders, and 3 attackers. Looking at the defenders, I would definitely go for Joshua Kimmich. Facing Dynamo Kiev once again, doubling up on that bind defense I think is a smart move, and Kimmich has so much attacking potential. He can get goals even from outside the box, assists, ball recoveries, and he's just an absolute monster. He can get so many points from so many different avenues. He's on set pieces, he's out of position. I don't know how he's still marked as a defender, to be honest, and decent ownership, of course, but I wouldn't really be worrying too much about ownership in this, and you're going to be picking up some differentials along the way with this team. And he's also a really good pick in general on a wild card up until the end of the group stages, to be honest, and possibly heading into the knockout stages. Then we have Antonio Rudiger. To be honest, it's a really tough fixture, so I can understand if you're not really too keen on him or any other Chelsea defenders. You could go for Marcos Alonso, Christensen, or Azpilicueta too, but you could also actually go for someone else entirely. So maybe looking at Borussia Dortmund facing Sporting Lisbon, you could go for Guerreiro if you really want to target the fixtures. I just think that you could still go for one or two players like Rudiger, who even if he doesn't keep a clean sheet, he can get plenty of points because of ball recoveries. Rudiger, that's one of his greatest assets. He was the highest scoring defender last season, so I would just consider that. But if not, you can go for Guerreiro, who might not play in as good of a defence, but he has a better fixture and has more chance of attacking returns. Then we have Trent Alexander-Arnold, speaking of attacking returns, and the fixture once again is relatively tough against Porto. I don't think it's easy by any stretch of the imagination, but once again with Trent, what we get here is attacking potential, and he actually gets plenty of ball recoveries too. Last season, he was one of the highest scoring players in the game, and he's always a good option no matter how difficult the fixtures are for Liverpool. They did just concede 3 to Brentford actually, but I really fancy Liverpool in this group. Will they keep too many clean sheets? I'm not so sure, and they might not even keep any against Porto, but Trent can still do really well, and on a Limitless, you probably want to go with him rather than without. That's just my opinion anyway, but you don't have to have him. In my opinion, he's not essential, but still a very good option. Looking at yet another attacking player is Robin Gosens, and this guy, even in the Champions League, has already scored, and he is just so attacking, even for Germany as well, for the Euros. This guy is just a great option in my opinion, fantasy-wise, and he can get some ball recovery points, but I'll be honest, it's not really his forte, but still, he could do pretty decent there. He's already got 4 ball recoveries this season, which isn't too bad. Atalanta's defence doesn't really fill me with confidence, and young boys were impressive against 10-man Manchester United. But still, I think Gosens could be really good, and on a Limitless, I'd be targeting these more attacking fullbacks who can still get some ball recoveries, but mainly they can get a clean sheet against the good opposition on paper, and also they can get these goals and assists, which Gosens is definitely capable of doing. And the last defender we're going for is Eder Militao, but David Alaba is actually back. He is flagged currently on UCL Fantasy, but he is back. He was in the lineup against Villarreal today, and that is good news for Real Madrid. Eder Militao played once again, and the reason why I have him really is the ball recoveries, and of course that might seem like a recurring theme in all of my UCL fantasy videos, but you want to kind of be open-minded, not just think about goals and assists, but also ball recoveries. They really make a difference in this game and make assets like Militao, maybe Kante as well, Casemiro, more viable options than they would be in FPL or Sky Fantasy Football even. But Eder Militao is also an ultra differential at 3%, facing Sheriff, who to be fair were pretty impressive in Matchday 1, but you would expect Real Madrid to do well here and potentially keep a clean sheet. I think doubling up on Bayern Munich and Real Madrid defence is a smart thing to do, and on a Limitless, I'd be very tempted to do so. We have 5 midfielders, of course, and we're starting with probably the most unorthodox of them in Ivan Perisic. Very good in Euro 2020 fantasy football, and he's a very good player on his day. Maybe not the kind of, I'd say, safest pick. He is very risky. He's owned by 0% of the game, but facing Shakhtar Donetsk, who looked really poor in Matchday 1, I think Inter can cause some problems and score a couple of goals here, and I'd back Perisic to be a big part of that. Of course, he is very risky. He's not completely nailed in Inter Milan's team. That's another thing to say. And you can always go for someone else, maybe even go for Jude Bellingham, for example, and double up on Dortmund attack or midfield with Marco Reus or just with Erling Haaland. So you don't have to go for Perisic, but if you want a really big differential, he is not the worst shout in the world. And if not, we have Kevin De Bruyne. I know he faces PSG, but he's actually done well against them in the past. I mean, look at last season, for example. And if you look at his Champions League record over the last year or so, it's actually really impressive. So Kevin De Bruyne already got an assist so far this season in the Champions League. He looked very good against Chelsea in the Premier League. He's a great option. You can also go for him. And there's also Leroy Sané. If you don't go for the double up with Manuel Neuer and Joshua Kimmich, or maybe Alphonso Davies as another example, you could go for Leroy Sané, who's been looking really good for Germany and Bayern Munich under their new managers. So Leroy Sané is another one to look out for. I would say Eden Hazard, but he's just not really... he's always kind of an injury doubt, and he's not in the team at the moment. It's mainly Vinicius Jr., Rodrigo and Benzema up front, and Gareth Bale, of course, he's an injury concern at the moment. I think he's going to be out for Matchday 2 potentially. So Perisic is just kind of your ultra differential, but if not, there's Leroy Sané, Bellingham, Kevin De Bruyne himself, and a few others you can go for. So it's not the end of the world. You don't have to go for him. Now we have Bruno Fernandes, who actually skied a penalty against Aston Villa and took it whilst Ronaldo was on the pitch, which is very interesting. I wouldn't expect him to still be on penalties, but he does have a lot of credit in the bank. He's only owned by 16% of the game. He did play really poorly, in my opinion, against Villarreal in the Europa League final, but this is a completely different game. And what I would say is that Villarreal is actually a pretty good team, to be honest, and maybe Man United won't actually score too many goals. It could be quite a cagey affair, just like the final was. So maybe Bruno Fernandes isn't the best pick, but he's decent cover for United attack if you don't go with Ronaldo. But still, I think he is a good option, of course, and everyone has their off days. Bruno still created a lot of chances, actually, against Aston Villa. I believe he created 10, which is obviously insane, and he has that creativity. He takes some set pieces, so he is a good option. And if you still have faith in the Portuguese maestro, you could go for him, and he could be a very nice differential. Marco Reus, speaking of differentials, you could also go for Bellingham, like I said before. 5% ownership, facing Sporting Lisbon, who of course struggled a lot to Ajax, and Haller did score 4 goals against them. You could go for a double or triple up even in Dortmund attack. I probably wouldn't go with a triple up. I think 2 is enough, and maybe getting a defender like Guerreiro. But Marco Reus can do really well here, and he's not really been talked about too much. And even though he hasn't been a great Champions League fantasy asset over the last few years, I think he has the potential to be explosive in games like this. So great option in my opinion. And of course, you can go for some of the options we talked about before in the midfield. You don't have to go for Marco Reus. But Mohamed Salah, in my opinion, not absolutely essential once again, but I probably wouldn't be going without him, especially on a Limitless. 10.5 million to get one of the most consistent wingers in recent years, to be honest. It's just a fantastic bargain. He can get goals. He's got a lot of creativity this season as well. Should have scored more goals against Brentford, and he just has the underlying stats, and he also has the end product to boot. And he's just a great player in my opinion, and he can do really well despite Porto being a tough fixture. And of course, Porto could actually cause Liverpool some problems, but I'd back Salah to do well here. And then we've got the kind of legend from Matchday 1, hat-trick hero against Manchester City despite losing quite comprehensively. It's Nkunku, who's been linked actually to Arsenal several times over the years. Unai Emery is a big fan of him. And of course, he was at PSG before. And just facing Club Brugge, to be fair, they did look very good against PSG, the Belgian side. But Nkunku can do well. I'm not going to expect him to do what he did in Matchday 1 every single week. He's not really known for his goal scoring, but what I like about him is he can get ball recoveries, he can get assists and goals, so he's a bit of a jack of all trades. And look, once again, you don't have to go for him, and you might think of it as chasing points from Matchday 1. So he's not someone I'd be completely settled on, to be honest, on a Limitless. If I was to Limitless this week, I might not even go for him myself, but he's still a really good option, worth highlighting. And of course, if he can do really well against Manchester City, who's to say he can't do it against Club Brugge, in my opinion? And of course, 4% ownership, and it was probably around 0 or 1% before the Manchester City game, to be honest. And now we look at the strikers, the kind of big part of the team. Erling Haaland, we're not going to talk about too much. He's just so consistent. And with all the kind of forwards, or at least a lot of them, they do have some tough fixtures. So you're looking mainly at, for example, the Manchester City ones and PSG. They're facing each other, so you probably don't want to go with them. Chelsea and Juventus are facing each other, and Atletico Madrid don't really have exactly the easiest fixture. So for me, Erling Haaland is pretty much a no-brainer, and I would rather have him over Lukaku and Mbappe, for example, this week, and even the likes of Messi and Neymar. And yeah, this guy, once again, I said this before in my team selection video, if Haller can score 4 goals against Sporting Lisbon, then Haaland can easily do the same thing, to be honest. And 62% ownership, he's a bit of a shield pick, so if he does really well and you have him, you're pretty much protected. You'll probably be captaining him, and definitely there's nothing wrong with captaining Haaland. He's just so reliable. Literally every single week I captain him, he delivers. So I mean, why not captain him? Why not have him in your team? That's the way I see it. And he's just a great option for the rest of the group stages. Probably the best striker you can go for. And 11 million is actually a bargain for him. And then we have Lewandowski. Fantastic performance in Matchday 1. Of course, he was in the right position at the right time. He got those tap-ins, as they call them. But that's 13 points. And despite Barcelona being a tough fixture on paper, they're just not the same team as they used to be. And I still thought Lewandowski could do well in that fixture. I probably should have started with him and backed him. As I've kept on saying in all these videos, him and Haaland, they've been the best Champions League scorers in recent years. So going with both of them is literally just a smart move, in my opinion. His run of 19 consecutive games with a goal did come to an end on Friday. But, you know, Messi still holds the record for that, by the way. I think it's 21 games. These kind of levels Lewandowski's at the moment are just insane, really. He's literally, I'd say, getting close to a prime Suarez. I don't think he's quite at that level yet, but Lewandowski, in terms of goal scoring, not many better. Only Messi and Ronaldo, really, over the last decade. And he's such a consistent player. Facing Dynamo Kiev at home, just so good. And then throughout the rest of the group stages, he could do extremely well. Just bear in mind that if Bayern wrap up the group quite quickly, which they probably will, Lewandowski could be subject to rotation like he was last season, but Nagelsmann is a different manager to Hansi Flick, so let's wait and see what happens there. But Robert Lewandowski, he can also get assists, that's what I like about him, and in terms of ball recoveries, he's not going to get you too many. But if Bayern Munich score, most likely will be Lewandowski involved. And because there is this player of the match award in pretty much the whole of the group stages, Lewandowski is one of the best bets to get those awards. Same with Haaland, same with Salah, and some of these other options I've talked about in this video. Potentially Bruno Fernandes too, if he can get his mojo back. So yeah, that's another kind of good thing going for most of these assets. And finally, Karim Benzema. He is actually probably the most informed player in the world at the moment, and I think in 7 La Liga appearances he's got 8 goals, something like that, and 7 assists. It's actually something crazy. I think he has 7 assists too, and him and Vinicius Jr. are combining for so many goals. I believe they've combined for 21 goals this season. By that I mean they've both scored 21 between them, but still, Benzema against Sheriff is a fantastic option for the captaincy, and he's also kind of, I'd say, overlooked, and he's probably a differential. 10% owned, very good ahead of a match like Sheriff. Of course, his ownership will increase, and what I would recommend before you lock in your teams, because remember, you have an hour before the deadline, you can see the lineups, and the deadline doesn't actually cut out like it would in FPL. You can actually make changes all the way until the game start. I would recommend that. Wait and see all the injury news and stuff and see the lineups for the Tuesday games, and don't worry about it too much. But yeah, just try to be safe and simple with your transfers. But Benzema on a Limitless, I think, is a no-brainer. And even if I do not wildcard or Limitless this match day, which I probably won't in terms of the wildcard anyway, I might actually get Benzema instead of Lewandowski. But to be honest, Lewandowski against Dynamo Kiev is just so tempting. But Benzema, fantastic option, very overlooked, and he could be exceptional this week. So those are my kind of picks. Once again, you can't highlight absolutely everyone. There is the pie as well. There's Ronaldo against Villarreal, and you look down the list. Even Lukaku against Juventus could do really well. Lautaro Martinez against Shakhtar. There's so many. Thomas Muller. I could go on and on and on. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below in terms of the best forwards, the best midfielders, the best defenders, the best goalkeepers, and also the best captains you can go for in Matchday 2. Let me know what you think of this team overall and what you would change. If you enjoyed this video, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new around here. Thank you very much for all the support across UCL Fantasy and FPL. I've been doing a lot of live streams for FPL and also UCL Fantasy. There's going to be another one on Tuesday, like I said before, so be sure to tune in when we get to that. And good luck with Matchday 2. Good luck with the rest of the Champions League campaign. Remember, there's only 13 match days, so it's very important to get to a good start and to be consistent, try to avoid hits, and to be patient, have a good concise plan and not overcomplicate things. So that's why I was talking about the best chip strategy you can go for earlier, and that will be relevant all the way up until the end of the Champions League campaign. And as for the best Limitless team, this is relevant for match days 2 and also match day 5. So obviously this could be very useful to you. Hopefully it has been, and I appreciate all of you who have been supporting the videos. Hopefully you have enjoyed it, and good luck once again, and I'll see you next time.